Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of Emilio is Dead. I am your host, Deke Slenson, and with me, as always, Rothchild. Roth, how are things going today?
Things are going great, Thief.
Did you get punched in the face, or did you just bite your tongue?
I just had a busy day of pronouncing my name, Rothchild, at work. I want everyone out there to get a job. But on with the podcast.
I think you've used up your quota for filthy language on this episode already. But today's episode is each one of our top 5 favorite superhero films. I know everyone's all crazy about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a couple of those DC films, I guess.
And don't worry, we will be talking to Martin Scorsese in a couple minutes about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Stay tuned for that.
You got a couple of caterpillars to sit on your face?
Have you seen what a couple of caterpillars can do to a woman's... That's it. Taxi driver quote. That sounded incredibly creepy. Moving along.
Yeah, my first choice for top 5 superhero films would be the 1989, I think, Punisher film starring the only Frank Castle that matters, Dolph Lundgren.
My list disagrees with the assumption that Dolph is the only Punisher that matters.
I will point out this.
Bite me.
Who else has the Punisher riding a motorcycle through the sewers and then using a hot blade to sear shut one of his wounds?
You got me stumped.
Exactly. This film has it. My biggest problem with this movie is that he never actually has the iconic skull logo on his shirt. But I mean, from a realistic standpoint, that would just be stupid to have a giant white skull in the middle of your chest as acting as a target.
Is the Punisher really a superhero?
Well, he's an anti-hero because he's going around murdering everybody. But that would arguably fit quite a few of the entries on my list. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and allow it.
Well, no, I'm not debating it. I just don't know. Anyone familiar with my views knows that I'm pretty ignorant to the comic book history. I've never been a comic book guy. I don't hate it or anything. It was just as a child, I don't know. Just not a comic book guy. I am a movie guy though, and let's face it, especially in the past 20 years, movies have been taken over by comic books, and because of that, I now inadvertently have comic book knowledge.
Tell me something. Have you ever seen the Dolph Lundgren Punisher film?
No, and that was my way of saying it. And I also have no clue about the Punisher's backstory or,
the Punisher's backstory has pretty much always been told almost correctly in the films. With the Tom Jane one, they went overboard. Instead of just his wife and daughter being killed, they murder every fucking member of his entire family ever at a family reunion. But I mean, for the most part, the origin's pretty simple. He's a cop. The mafia wants him taken care of to kill his family instead of him.
Well, they even went.
He comes back and kills everyone.
But I will say, and I've never seen that version, but I will say they did. From what I gathered, they did go a step further though in the darkness. I mean, you say it might not have been like the entire family, but they had the added element of having Frank Castle interact with John Travolta.
Yeah, John Travolta's pretty horrible in that, and especially his horrible hair plugs. I don't know if you've ever seen an actual image of him from the movie, but my God, does he look ridiculous?
I've only seen one Punisher film, and spoiler alert, it is my number 3 choice of top 5 comic book films ever.
You're not. Are you very big on that late '80s action movie aesthetic?
I am when it's either unintentionally funny or I am if it's unintentionally funny.
Well, then I would have to say you might want to give this Punisher a try. It might not be your favorite. It might be another situation like with Stallone's Cobra, where you just find it underwhelming.
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
But
I finished it, which says a lot.
I can almost guarantee if you finished Cobra, you'll finish this, and
And
it would probably entertain you a bit more.
My thoughts on this have always been similar to what I felt about Cobra. Is that I feel like if I had seen this at a younger age, I feel like if I watch it now, I'm gonna get that I missed the boat feeling. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get that uh, that benefit of like Masters of the Universe, another Dolph Lundgren film. If I sat down to watch that objectively today for the first time, I would probably think it's ridiculous and
Yeah, you do have a point there,
corny.
because I did see this movie when I was probably 12,
Yeah,
13, so about the right age.
and like I said, but if I, because I grew up on Masters of the Universe, I recognize how ridiculous it is. But I have a soft spot for it, and it entertains me. But moving on, my first film I'm gonna list is the Will Smith film Hancock.
Anytime a superhero is flying drunk, and then wasn't it P Papa Diddy Puff who got super excited because they were doing a black superhero, even though it had been done before?
Probably, dude. I never watched fucking Hancock. That's not on my list.
Yeah, I just remember, I think it was P
Why would I
Papa
watch
Diddy.
that?
I'm pretty sure it was P Papa Diddy who was going crazy on Twitter about, like, finally we're being represented in film, even though the Black Panther exists and there've already been 2 or 3 Blade movies, whatever.
Yeah, but my real selection is Scott Pilgrim. Edgar Wright's mastery of the comic book film genre, starring one Miss Aburi Plaza. There's some other people. Yeah, it's actually I think the reason why this one makes my list, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I don't even know what the plot was. I mean, there was something about a dude who he like plays
He had to
bass
fight
guitar.
like ex-boyfriends of some chick or something.
Maybe, I don't know. Mary Elizabeth Winstead looked incredible in it though. So this made my top 5 comic book films of all time. Fuck you, Donner.
I can't say much about this movie. I've seen most of it, maybe all of it once. Wasn't a fan. It was too bright. There was too many things going on. There were too many annoying characters that I were people that I would like intentionally avoid in real life. I don't know. It was just abrasive, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll say I think what helped me on a serious note, I do really like this film. I expected to hate it. The only reason I watched it was because of Shaun of the Dead and like those movies, Hot Fuzz and whatnot.
I didn't even know that guy had made it until like
That
years
was
later, when the internet started going crazy over him.
I mean, come on, dude. This is like a comic book looking thing with Michael Cera. I'm not watching that. It was literally Edgar Wright, where I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. But even with that, I expected complete garbage. And no, there's bright colors and everything. The kind of video game, like how everyone turns into coins. The editing of the film is very. I don't know. It is though. It's weird that
Didn't
actually,
it
I
also
should have
feature
put this on my
Jason Schwartzman?
list. It did. It did. I should have put this on my shocking list because now that I'm saying all this stuff out loud, this sounds like something I should hate. But nah, it works for me. It's enjoyable. I've watched it more than once. It's a blast to watch. It goes by.
Would you put it above or below Shaun of the Dead?
Below.
So you think Shaun is better?
I think Shaun's the best film. Edgar Wright. Actually, anybody involved, I would say it's their best film.
We're in agreement there, at least.
Yeah, good. There's a lot of people who say Hot Fuzz is better, and I never understood that.
Hot Fuzz is horrible. I've only seen about 10 minutes of that, and that was 10 minutes far too much.
I like it, but it's overrated. It is it's like too clever. You didn't make it far, but like, dude, and there's like maybe 5 endings to that film. It's like not bad, but it's not Shaun of the Dead. Anyway, what's your next choice, Deke?
My next choice is a bit of a controversial choice, as they're, again, not really superheroes and more anti-heroes, and also their merits. I mean, they had a comic book, so they count. But it would be Guar's Phallus in Wonderland. loosely based on a real-life case of obscenity that was brought against him by the state of Virginia, where the lead singer Oderus Urungus's fake penis was confiscated by the police department, held in an evidence locker. I believe they never got it back. Actually, I believe it might still be rotting in an evidence locker somewhere in Virginia. Uh, and Guar had to they ended up suing the state and suing the police and winning, and then they had to donate the money to some charity, whatever. But as a result of that, they created this movie where Oderus Urungus's penis goes on trial, and it's actually like on the witness stand and testifying, and they have their pet Tyrannosaurus Rex born, and they feed it crack, and it takes over the city. And it's just, if you've never seen it, it's basically just, it's a Guar music video with a bit of a plot thrown together, but
Deke, I have not seen it, but what I will ask you is, for our millions of listeners, you may want to provide a background on Guar and this Oderus Among Us.
Well, I mean, everyone listening is sitting at a computer, so they have Google. If they're unaware of who Guar is, just Google it. They're an American rock band, and that's all that needs to be said.
Definitely. My choice, Howard the Duck. George Lucas's masterpiece. This movie took the world by storm. It was it was a triumph. It changed movies forever. It came out in 1977. And they actually got James Earl Jones to voice this animatronic. It wasn't even animatronic. It was how do I word this, Deke? A little person in a duck suit.
I believe they like to be called elves.
Elves? Well, this elf had a penchant for cigars, if you've never seen this film. And no, as a boy, what drew me most to this movie is sex between Leah Thompson and and an elf in a duck suit. Many films have tried this before and since, having Leah Thompson make love to a duck. But I feel like Howard the Duck is the only film that truly captured that. Plus, it had Jeffrey Jones as the villain, who... Could you imagine that midget on set?
Was he, in fact, 13?
Being mistaken for a young boy by Jeffrey Jones. The terror. And you feel it on screen. It's tense. It's a very tense film, Deke.
Right.
What's your number 3?
My number 3. I've never seen Howard the Duck, so I have nothing really to weigh in on that one. But my number 3 is one that you've also never seen. 1997, I believe, Spawn. Spoiler alert. Nostalgia and a heavy love for this character plays a bit of a role in my opinion of it, but I will say it gets across all the important necessary elements of the character, and doesn't betray anything. It's just, I mean, it's 1997 CGI on a budget, dude. It's gonna look horrible. The fucking cape looks horrible. I'm man enough to admit it, that it looks absolutely horrible. One of the worst looking CGI effects I've ever seen.
You pointed out that Martin Sheen is in this, and I'm a fan of his work.
The cast of this movie is pretty heavy hitters. I mean, you got Martin Sheen as Jason Wynn, the antagonist of the film, the bad guy. You've got Michael Jai White, who, in my opinion, will always just be Spawn. In my day-to-day life, I refer to him
after simply, Black Dynamite.
Yes, even after Black Dynamite, I still refer to him as Spawn. Spawn is Black Dynamite.
Wow.
And then it's also got Leguizamo as the clown, and he knocks it out of the park as the clown.
He's underrated. He's underrated as an actor, period.
It's funny you brought up Jeff Jones, because I've always been a fan of that movie The Pest with Leguizamo, where Jeff Jones is a neo-Nazi and he hires him to run around a jungle dressed like an insulting Mexican stereotype while he literally tries to hunt him.
See, Leguizamo is so underrated that I've never even seen The Pest.
It's not great.
No, I know what it is. I'm aware of it. But yeah, I've never seen it.
But Leguizamo was far, far greater in Spawn, I will say.
Judging by the trailers of The Pest, he was rated just fine at that point. I'm speaking more of his dramatic work. No, but I mean, he's good. From what I know, I have never seen Spawn. From what I know of the material, from the scenes I'd catch on cable here and there in the late '90s, it did seem like a good fit for Leguizamo because it had like a sinister. Well, it had like a manic energy. Is that what that character's supposed to have?
He's
Like a
the character
very
is literally a demon.
yeah,
He's literally
and
a demon, and that's his human form, is a twisted fat clown that likes to eat like maggots and rats and shit.
yeah, and Leguizamo definitely brings energy. You know, even if you're not a fan, you can't argue he doesn't bring energy to his performances, or he always stands out, even if it's a small role like Carlito's Way. He's memorable. But
One last
I
thing
can
about the
picture
Spawn movie.
him.
If you
Excuse
do,
me, Deke.
go ahead.
Nah, I don't even care what I'm on. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one last thing about the Spawn movie. If anyone here does seek it out, make sure you get the R-rated cut, because the studio did play a heavy hand in dicking this movie over and putting out a subpar PG-13 version, which I believe I did see whatever age I was when I first saw it on video, and it was horrible. But they righted this wrong with the R-rated home video release, so just be sure you see the right version. That's all I was gonna say.
Can I point out how hilarious it was that you interrupted me to say one last thing about Spawn?
I figured that was probably enough about a movie you'd never seen.
And you are right. Which brings me to my next selection. The second entry of Frank Castle on our podcast. I am going with the magnum opus of a director I forgot. I do remember she's female. Because I'm a raging misogynist. And this film is Punisher Warzone. Quite frankly, the greatest and most accurate depiction of the Punisher character on film.
I'll disagree with you there, but I don't hate it. I was never really, honestly.
How could you?
I was never that big.
How could you hate it?
I was never that big on like the body armor he wears. He just looks like he has like, I don't know, like a soup can or something around his fucking chest.
The insane gore and just utter ridiculousness.
There is a scene where Jigsaw is rallying all the criminals, and there's probably about a solid minute to a minute and a half of uninterrupted Slipknot. So I take points off for that.
You know what?
Force feeding you Corey Taylor is a negative in my eyes.
You're absolutely right, Deke. I changed that. My number 3, Addams Family Values, based on the Charles Schultz comics.
You're just gonna keep going on about Addams Family Values?
It's a fucking masterpiece. Honestly, you don't even need to watch movies after you've seen Addams Family Values. Like, there's nowhere left to go but down. Everyone complains, it's Scorsese. Fuck you. It's not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's Addams Family Values. Nobody can top that shit.
Except for possibly my next choice, which would be the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. Not unlike the Spawn movie and the both Punisher movies, it does the character justice, or the characters justice. It does walk the line a little bit, playing it safe for the kids, but I do distinctly remember the turtles cursing in this film. They say damn and hell, and I believe even bitch at one point.
Didn't they remove their weapons or something?
That was in part 2. That was in part 2. None of them use their weapons ever. I think they don't use them against people, at least. Like, I believe Leonardo stabs his swords into the ceiling and then lifts himself up, but they don't ever actually like use them against someone. There's even a scene in part 2 where they're in a fucking net and they're like, how do we get out of this? That. And Leonardo has like samurai swords on his back.
Doesn't Raphael have like size and Donatello can like, twirl a fucking baton or something?
But you see, that's what makes the first one so good, is that it was still dark enough to represent what the comics were, and still, let's be honest, kiddified enough to where the children watching who were familiar with the cartoon would not be like, what the fuck are the turtles killing people and cursing for, even though they totally do both of those things in the film.
You know what I always loved about the movie, and I don't think I subconsciously probably picked up on this as a child, but as
April O'Neil.
I actually think the April O'Neil in part 2 is more attractive, but No, New York. It's a
The
gritty
dirty.
looking movie.
Yeah, it very
It's a
very much is.
gritty looking movie for a kids movie, and it's like,
Everything is
wow, you
wet
guys
looking
got,
in it too.
yeah, yeah. It's like you guys got New York like right when you really had no reason or business doing so. It wouldn't have mattered. This movie would have made money, and but there's a like a authenticity when you have that gritty New York setting and
New line,
feel
man.
mixed with Henson's, like these designs, and it's in the real world. It makes it feel, dude, that movie's more convincing than a lot of CGI. I'll say this. Here we go. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Deke. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is more realistic looking than any Marvel film ever made.
I can argue a little bit with the first Thor movie, but that's just because they actually built sets for that. That always impressed me. But yeah, overall, pretty much, yeah. Bad CG will always look inferior to practical effects.
I mean, when I watched that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie to this day, which I do once a week, I am always taken aback by it. It's real. It's tangible. You can feel it.
I believe the first one, didn't the first one also have little kids like smoking cigarettes while they were playing arcade games?
Yeah, Sam Rockwell.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's
Bonus
one of
points
the
to the movie for Sam Rockwell getting cancer.
he's one of the foot soldier kids who's like hanging out, stealing cigarettes off trucks, playing arcade games. Yeah, like why the fuck? How the hell did the Foot Clan have like this badass arcade? Where were they? Shredder set up like, hey guys, let's make a Chuck E. Cheese. Let's lure kids in here to become fucking ninjas.
They got the funds from Dimension X.
Jesus Christ, where's Krang when you need him? Which leads me to my next.
In the Michael Bay reboot.
I couldn't watch that. I have dignity. What brings me. Actually, none of that. There's no segue. How the fuck do I connect your movie to The Crow? Which leads me to The Crow.
Dark, dingy, wet-looking sets. There you go.
Fuck. Good job, man. Yeah, I'm going to go with The Crow, and I don't really have any funny things to say about it. But I also feel like I have nothing original to say about it. I feel like this movie gets its fair amount of love. But I adore it. I grew up on it. For me, it was the first time I had seen a comic book film that
didn't seem like a comic book film.
Yeah, it felt like it had some gravitas to it, which is funny because as I got older and I watched it, I'm like, this isn't deep at all. Like 11-year-old me was like, yeah.
Jesus, and then put me up for the night joke and shit.
Fuck yeah, 11-year-old me. That soundtrack was a motherfucker. But yeah, but it's still I like the look of it. It's still no, it was the first time I'd seen like R-rated comic book film, I believe.
Have you ever seen the director's later film Dark City?
No, I know a lot of people claim that's like an unsung classic.
It is. It's kind of like it's got almost the exact look of The Crow, the dark city.
Isn't it more CGI looking though, from what I recall from trailers?
There are a bit of CGI elements, but it's not. It's still pretty practical. But it's not like a real city, so it's a lot of composite shots like it was in The Crow. Like remember like the bad flame shooting up at the beginning of The Crow.
I'm surprised you like that. Isn't that film pretty obviously inspired by Blade Runner?
I don't necessarily know about that, but it's like a fucked up David Lynch movie.
Oh, I mean just the look even of the. Like I said, I could be completely off. I'm just going.
I don't necessarily know if it's. I don't know if it's necessarily meant, or if it was necessarily inspired by Blade Runner or just noir films in general. I believe it was just noir films in general.
I know. I was about to say
the dude in a trench coat with the collar up is.
Even if you just want to narrow it down to Blade Runner, there are numerous films that have. I mean, Nolan did it with the Dark Knight movies. Like he specifically set out to do that. But enough about Nolan. We're talking about comic book movies, and he's never made one. The Crow, it holds up, man. It's more. I'm gonna go out. I am gonna say this. I don't think Brandon Lee dying like added anything or to it. Like I don't think that's a reason why people like it. I never bought into
think
that.
it
Oh,
definitely helps.
no.
There's definitely some fandom added to it because of that, the finality of it, and plus with the subject matter of the character and the fact it was based on a loosely real story. Like all of it combines together to
I
create a
would
perfect storm
agree.
of media hype.
I would agree if this film was forgotten, but it's held up. Nobody gives a fuck about Brandon Lee right now, and it's still a pretty beloved film. And at the same time, dude, Brandon Lee, outside of like people I'd assume who followed his father, or I mean, he wasn't a big star at that time. What did he do? Like one like straight to video action movies before this. Like he wasn't like that was news at the time more because he was Bruce Lee's son and it resembled his father's death more than it was like this is a loss of a celebrity. You know what I mean?
I mean, it was still
Still a
news though,
hype. Oh
and
sure, still a
like they
hype.
say, any news is not bad news when
Of
considering.
course. But I mean in 93 it wasn't as
That when this movie came out in '93.
yeah,
Damn.
it wasn't like The Dark Knight where it was like everywhere that everyone knew and everyone it was on everyone, you know, everyone talking about it and all that.
And if
Uh
anyone wants to hear my thoughts any deeper on this, I did do a review on it a while back. It's
on the
somewhere on my
Crow?
channel. Yeah,
Oh, I never caught that one. Yeah, check
it's
that
on the
out.
channel somewhere. But that leads me to my last selection for top superhero films, and that is the animated DC film Batman and Harley Quinn.
Mm.
Uh, it, I mean, it's pretty much when you imagine an animated DC film, it's got all the elements you would want and a horrible musical number.
You son of a bitch. I was actually just about to say I was gonna make the joke when you said it has everything you want. I was gonna say you're right. It has blondies hanging on the telephone.
Yeah, like I said, a horrible musical number.
I love Blondie. You talked me into watching this. This is the only DC animated film I have ever seen.
And it's a
I
good
am
way to start.
I am notoriously hard on comic book movies, modern comic book movies, and I'm notoriously hard on animation. Yet I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I was shocked. I was surprised
It's a
by
buddy
how much I
comedy
enjoyed
between
it.
Batman and Harley Quinn, and
Yeah,
it's like a road trip movie at the same
exactly. I
time.
was just about to say it's a road trip. It's a buddy road trip film. And to me, even if I don't know how serious you were about the Blondie comment, it works in the film. It's great for where they're at in that part. And that's from, like I said, from what I know of Harley Quinn's character, I felt like that was in line. You know what I
It
mean?
definitely contextually fit. It just, I mean, the whole song, dude.
You're
We
just not
really
a
need
fan
it.
of the song.
Yeah, I don't really need the whole 2.5, 3 minute song.
I will ask you this as someone that is my introduction into the DC animated universe. It is the only one I've ever seen. What do you suggest I take a chance on next?
It's difficult to decide because nothing right offhand comes to mind with the same level of like energy and comedy. A lot of it is more serious, and a lot of the
I
other stuff is like crossover films where you not necessarily have had to see other movies, but you have to be familiar with the other characters, like the Justice League members and shit like
yeah.
that. So
One thing I will say about this film that worked for me also, and I came to this realization while watching it. I'm kind of partial to the Poison Ivy character.
I'm not shocked by that. The vamped up
Yeah. Well,
seductress
but no,
lady
not
thinks
even
you
that.
liked her.
Well, well,
That's
yeah.
literally her superpower is that she seduces men with
Not human
pheromones and then kills
beings.
them with her kisses.
But by that rationale, I would love Batman and Robin, which I do like it more than most people, but I still think it's fucking trash. And I don't think Uma Thurman is attractive in it or anything. Uh, but yeah, dude, did you see those goddamn cartoon titties?
Did you just find your next tattoo? Just block letters that say cartoon titties.
Oh, I thought you were saying Poison Ivy. Like, are you fucking
Do
kidding
that, and
me?
then
I don't want
underneath of
people
it,
asking me about comic books. I
just
already get
put.
enough. Dude, you know how often I get, hey, dude, is that Kurt Russell? Because I have Snake Plissken. And it's funny because like where it's at on my arm, I guess like how I naturally sit or stand or whatever, like Kurt Russell's just staring everyone down. But it's always because like when it first started happening, I was like, it's weird having random people just I'm used to it now, but like just is that Kurt Russell? And I'm like, where? I'm turning around and shit.
I think you should just get Poison Ivy's torso tattooed on you, like just her chest area, and then just in block letters above and below it, cartoon titties.
Deke, I love the character so much. I'm just gonna go out and literally get Poison Ivy.
Just roll yourself up a joint of it.
Which brings me to my final choice, and if I had to, well, you selecting Batman and Harley Quinn brings me to my final choice, and arguably, I think this is my favorite comic book film of all time. Easily favorite superhero comic book film of all time. I mean, I'm not taking like Do the Right Thing into consideration. Batman Returns. Tim Burton's 1992 sequel to his 89 smash hit Batman.
It does do a lot more things than the original Batman. Than the original Tim Burton Batman, I should say. And it also isn't that the one that has him eating the cold soup?
Yes.
And he spits it out like it's cold. And it's supposed to be served that way.
And he also becomes a DJ and he scratches a CD. And there's a record sound effect. This movie gets everything right about Bruce Wayne.
Really, I guess that could have been a bit of foreshadowing for the Marvel Cinematic Universe years later when they would feature drunk Iron Man playing DJ in Iron Man 2. So there you go. The Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only is it stupid and vapid, it's unoriginal.
Here. But yeah, Batman Returns. I quote Batman Returns to this day. So many great lines. When when Walken kills Pfeiffer in the beginning, and I love how she becomes Catwoman. I guess you just fall out of a window and
get licked by a stray
lick
cat.
You, and now you're Catwoman, and now all of a sudden you can do backflips and shit. But yeah, though, like before she's like, it's not like you're just gonna kill me, is it? And Walken's all, actually, it's a lot like that. And he just like pushes her out. Love it. Hilarity. DeVito is the Penguin, intentionally playing it as repulsive as possible. Brilliant. I love it. Seriously, like what the fuck were these people thinking when they made this movie? Like, as much as I hate that Warner like fired Burton, I secretly totally understand.
Like, he was getting a little bit too ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us an S&M film, like, and I thank him for it. That's why it's my number one comic book movie. He just gave me a fetishized leather. Just the pussy I've been looking for. Lines like that,
I'm honestly kind of shocked that Pfeiffer's Catwoman made it on your list, but your girl Hathaway's did not.
And Hathaway's. That's my wife, Deke. Of course, she is the best to ever portray the character. But as I said, I mean, Christopher Nolan has never made a comic book film, so I couldn't rightfully take that into consideration. Hathaway, in my opinion, was great as Selena Kyle, and the only thing that was entertaining in that dumb movie. But again, dude, comic books, I can't. It's The Dark Knight Rises. I can't.
I like the part when Batman's back got broken. I just wish it would have ended right there.
Dude, if only some cats had come up and licked him, he could have just jumped up and did some flips right out of that goddamn cave or whatever the hell he was stuck in.
Wasn't it like it was a prison?
Yeah, and then he swam across the world in like a day. Meanwhile, all these cops have been locked underground for like 6 months or something. Dude, that movie makes no sense. Shit.
I mean, he was focusing his brain power on Inception at the time. He didn't give a fuck about that movie script.
Jesus. Brain power and Inception. Yikes. let's all Inception is that exhibit meme. It's just, yo dog, I heard you like blank, so I put dreams in your dreams so you could dream while you dream. Fuck Nolan. You're right.
I'll second that.
You're right, dude. I'll defend Memento. But even that, I don't really care.
If you watch it forward, like if you watched it sequentially, it's still a really stupid fucking story.
I've never seen The Prestige, so I can't comment on that one. People seem
what the hell that is.
Oh, that's the one with like, isn't it about like Tesla or something? Some magician shit.
Yeah, who cares?
With Christian Bale.
Did he lose a bunch of weight for it? Or does he kill a hooker with a chainsaw?
Man,
if the answer to this question is no, then I don't care.
I don't like The Machinist.
It's not great, but it's better than anything else he's done. It's greater than him trying to be John Connor.
I could name 5 movies by Bale I like that are way better than The Machinist, probably off the top of my head.
I'm sure you could.
There you have it, folks. Batman Returns, my number 1. If you have not seen any of these flicks, I recommend you do so because you are living life wrong.
And also, on the note of Tim Burton's Batman Returns, you should likely want to tune into the next episode of Emilio is Dead, because we will be taking a look at the career of one Tim Burton.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, and goddamn does he have his fair share of all 3.
Yeah, but mostly the good, because fuck those later films.
Yes. Spoiler alert. Well, Deke, it's been real.
That it has. Thanks for tuning in to this much shorter, abbreviated episode of Emilio is Dead.
Thank you, Mark Turner. Good night.